Okay, hello, welcome everyone. How's the start of the semester so far? First day, can't say much, right? I hope you're having a great start. Who's starting the master this week? Oh, a lot of you, amazing. Who's new to EPFL? A good half? Wow, that's a big set. Who's been here for the bachelor's? Cool, cool. Very warm welcome. What's your background? Who's in the computer science track? Computer science master? Cybersecurity? Okay, a bunch more. The communication? Data science, like one. You're a dying breed. We're likely going to get rid of this master soon because there's very few people left. It's an excellent master though, but the distribution is kind of odd. Who has data science? Last show of hands. Yeah, a bunch more. This is growing. Very cool, very cool. I'm Matthias. I have the pleasure to teach COM402, or what I call information security and privacy, or what I call what every computer scientist should know about security and privacy. So this is more of like a basic class that is going to touch on a lot of different topics. We're going to be very broad, so we're covering everything from crypto to privacy over machine learning and security, and a little bit of system and software security. So they're going to be very, very broad, which also means that we cannot go super deep. So this class gives you a bit of an overview of all the different topics that we have, and kind of like to whet your appetite a bit, hopefully allowing you to further dive into several of the topics, going much deeper into the deep technical aspects. The class is going to be on site, but we're also providing recordings if you cannot make it at any point in time. I highly recommend, though, to actually come to class. Like, I try to make my classes as interactive as possible. If you do have questions, ask them. There's also going to be quizzes, like quick discussion points throughout the class. I'm very much aware that Monday from 4 to 7 is a very shitty time. Not my choice, not my first choice, not my second choice. It's much better than Friday morning at 8 a.m. though, right? So it's not great, but it could be worse. I know you will be tired during the day. Who has got other classes on Monday sometime during the day? Most of you, right? So I'm very much aware that having 3 hours of classes from 4 to 7 is horrible. So we're trying to make this light with pauses and some interactions throughout. We'll try to make it work and try to figure out how to do the best, how to make the best of it. At any point in time, if you do have questions, let me know. Right? This can be as interactive as you are. Don't be shy asking questions. Like, I don't care. I've heard all the different kinds of questions. So this is perfectly fine. I'm also fine answering and explaining the same material multiple times. Like, the key is for you to learn and to figure out much more about information security and privacy throughout this class. If you don't ask questions, you will not learn. So please, please, please ask. We all started at that point in time, and I took classes not too long ago, right? So feel free to interrupt, ask, and make this fun and interactive as well. If you are shy, there's also online questions and an online forum for you to use, and we can use that as well. So in the end, it's about a mix. Each class is going to start with the same slide, learning goals, then the different class topics, and we'll usually end with a summary slide so that you get some structure for each of the different classes that we have. Also something for you to hold on to. This first hour, I'm going to cover mostly logistics, and then we'll cover some basic properties and so on of this class. Also giving you the kind of basis to bring everybody up to speed. So just for reference, like I told before what different masters you were in, right? There's a lot of different people from different backgrounds coming in here. Some with extensive programming experience, some with very little, some who had security classes before. For some who this is the first class on security to start with, right? So we're trying to get everybody up to the same speed. So some of the topics you may have known, others you're going to hear for the first time. We're trying to be a bit extensive and cover as much as we can. And there's always going to be bits and pieces that you haven't heard. So please keep paying attention, and let's try to make this a great learning experience for all of you. First class, well, just figuring out the course layout. What are your tasks? What are my tasks? What is this all going to be? Know where to get help, right? Just listening for me 3 hours a week is not going to cut it. It's also not that much fun. We'll try to make this a two-way communication, not just a one-way me yelling into the void, but somewhere where you can actually learn and make this interactive. And then being aware of schedule, deadlines, exams, and quizzes, and whatnot. Quick disclaimer, right? So this is the second time I'm teaching this class. I took this class over last year from a bunch of previous people who've been teaching it before. We've heavily adapted the layout, material, and so on, and we're pushing and investing more resources into renewing the material, right? But again, this class is very broad, so we're covering a lot of different topics. I just want to give a shout out to all the previous people who helped on this class before and who've been teaching this class before as well. So if you like this class, this was all thanks to my doing. If you dislike the class, blame the people who worked on this before. Or the other way around, I always mix this up. Contact information, like as I mentioned before, I'm Matthias. Feel free to use the first name. I'm not very formal. I'm happy to discuss and talk and help you get more familiar with the topic and the course. It's supposed to be a fun course. Let's keep this technical and focused, and also at a professional level. We have the pleasure of getting a bunch of teaching assistants and student assistants who will be helping with the homeworks, exercises, and guide you through some of the material as well. There's Chibin, Florian, Han, Luca, Musa, Philip, Yushi, and Xiao, who will take great care of you in the exercises and homework sessions and help you through that as well. We've also got Leo and Victor, who will be working on having more hands-on help and like that. Very good. So my background is actually software and system security. So I'm covering one of the many topics that we'll touch on during this class. And in my research lab, we're focusing on what we can do under the assumption that software will always be buggy, right? I assume all of you have written some piece of code. I assume that most of you will have had some bugs in your code at one point or another. Writing bug-free code is next to impossible, and especially if you consider the scale and complexity of today's code, it's massive, right? The Google Chrome as a browser plus an operating system kernel like the Linux kernel end up with around 100 million lines of code, which is a massive amount of complexity. So no matter what you do, there's always going to be bugs and vulnerabilities in there, and there's no way for you to actually find and fix all of these vulnerabilities. Also, there's a large code churn that changes and adjusts the code. So under the assumption that there will always be bugs, in my research lab, we're looking at 5 different kind of research questions. And it's just like a piece of code that is up there to illustrate some of the issues. So it's in C or C++, where we have a log function and a vulnerable function with a buffer overflow where an address pointer is being taken, and then there's a buffer overflow afterwards. No need to know all the details for now. We're going to cover that later. But if you would have this in a piece of code, this would result in an exploitable vulnerability that would allow the attacker or an attacker to take over your system and execute arbitrary code to steal your data, encrypt your data, attack your system, turn your system into add this as part of a botnet or whatnot. Research questions that we are looking at, that we are interested in for researchers: how can we efficiently detect these kind of security violations, as in how can we design an oracle that tells us, hey, there's a bug right here, right? There's a bug that was just triggered. Now please go look at it as a developer. Also, how can we automatically generate test cases that allow us to reach all the different pieces of functionality? With like 10 lines of code, as I'm showing here, this is pretty easy to do. But if you scale this to 100 million lines of code, things look quite a bit different. Right? So we're trying to figure out how to trigger interesting behavior, and also scaling this to like massive and large source code repositories like Google Chrome or whatnot. We're also trying to figure out how we can effectively test complex interfaces, like how, for example, the software-hardware boundary when you're plugging in a USB device or whatnot, what an attacker could do by interacting across this software-hardware boundary. After learning about where all these different vulnerabilities and issues are, we're also trying to design ways how we can check and mitigate some of the remaining potential issues, such as like co-designed mitigations that stop exploitation or hinder exploitation of bugs. I'm not in my lab on my own, but I have the pleasure to work with a bunch of excellent students, former students, visitors, and other kind of researchers all in my lab. And we're focusing on 3 main pillars, some of which, or many of which, we will actually cover during the class as well. First of which is automated testing. And here, the idea is to, what kind of tools can we give developers to find and fix as many vulnerabilities as we can? Like, the best approach to software security or to security is to actually inherently get rid of vulnerabilities. Like, if you discover a potential issue, you fix it, you patch it, then this vulnerability can no longer be exploited by an attacker, right? So the first goal of securing a system is always trying to get rid of as many vulnerabilities as possible. And here, this is a tool for developers where we're trying to find bugs and make bugs detectable. Second, we're looking at mitigations. And here, the goal is to stop exploitation. And this is running on code that's actually being deployed. So if you're running a browser on your system, if you're running an app on your Android phone, like, you're running not just the code that the developer wrote, but you're also running a whole bunch of additional safeguards to try to verify that there's no exploitation in progress, right? That exploitation cannot happen. So, for example, checking for specific memory layouts or whatnot to make sure that this makes exploitation as hard as possible. Now, designing mitigations, and we'll cover this in more detail, is this interesting trade-off where, like, assuming that your code would be bug-free, you would not need any kind of mitigation. You would not need any kind of safeguards. But very likely there's going to be bugs. But you're measuring this unknown distribution, right? You don't know how many bugs there are in software. So there's this trade-off between paying additional performance overhead for running the mitigation versus the potential inexistence of bugs or vulnerabilities, right? So you have to design these mitigations very carefully, that they have low overhead but are fairly effective in covering as many potential issues and vulnerabilities as possible. And here we're looking at different kind of new mitigations and whatnot. So, for example, if you're using an Android phone, there's a bunch of mitigation that we designed in our labs that are actually being deployed on all of these systems right now, which is kind of cool, a cool effect if you're working on a research project and then your code runs on a couple of billion devices. It's a fairly nice turnout. Same as for our testing approaches. This is now being deployed on fairly large systems to continuously make the code more secure, such as the Linux kernel or other software systems. Last but not least, we're also looking into compartmentalization, given that the complexity of software today is just immensely big. There's thousands of libraries with hundreds of millions of lines of code running all together. The assumption here that we're looking at is that this complexity has become unmanageable, and we're trying to rip this apart a bit and make sure that we can enforce security checks at the interaction of different components. So this is pretty much what we are doing in my lab, some of which we will cover here in class as well. But also there's going to be research projects for master students that some of you may be interested in, especially for the cybersecurity students, but also for the computer science students. We do take applications to the lab for all of these research projects, so feel free to check out the homepage of the lab and interact with the PhD students working on their topics and see if there's something interesting for you in there. For this course, we're going to use Moodle for communication. If you want to figure out material, download slides, look at quizzes from last year, look at previous exams, download homework and whatnot. All of this is going to be on Moodle. Remember go.epfl.ch/com402, or you can also remember the long Moodle URL if you want to. In addition to that, we're going to use EdDiscussion for the discussion on homework, slides, and whatnot. So every time you have questions, feel free to post it there. Make this interactive, right? So you can also answer questions that are in the forum, like asked by your peers, and we will jump in and also provide answers and join the discussions for the different topics. Right? So use this as much as you want, make this interactive, and go discuss. The best learning experience is when you're actually working on these exercises on the slides and so on, and try out the different aspects on your own as well and discuss. So far so good. COM402 on Moodle. I think most of you are already registered, and I think a bunch of you have already found the slides that I saw. So I'm linking the Google slides that I'm using. So just feel free to make a link on those. If you want the PDF, you should be able to export a PDF at any point in time, especially if you want to take notes on the slides during the class. It's also fairly useful. Cool. Course agenda. So we're going to have the classes always on Mondays. Today's introduction and different kind of cyber threats that we'll be looking at. 2 weeks from now, because next week there's a national holiday, but only on, not a cantonal holiday, but only on Monday. So use the day off wisely. So 2 weeks from now, crypto basics, then access control and authentication, then data security, PAIC, and So today, introduction and cyber threats. 2 weeks from now, crypto basics. 3 weeks from now, access control and authentication. That did not work as intended. So this is considered the information basics, the first 3 classes. Then we have 3 classes on data security, programming languages security, and compartments. Remember the discussion from the group topics before, and OWASP, like web application security and buffer overflows, which together form the main security block. Then as a third block, we have automated testing, mobile security, and network security, along with operational security, which just covers some of the security applications. And the last 3 blocks on privacy, consisting of T's and side channels privacy, and ML security and privacy. So these are the 4 different blocks that we're going to look at. Each block has 3 classes in it, and allowing you to dive into different areas of security. The first 3 weeks are the boring basics. Then we're going to get into the exciting 3 weeks of software security, which is my research area pretty much, along with security applications, trying to spotlight some of the different areas. And we're going to end with privacy aspects, covering some of the implications to society and how this all connects across the different layers. We're going to have weekly lectures, as I mentioned before, Mondays from 4:15 to 7 in here in this class. Recordings are online as soon as they finish processing. It usually takes 1 or 2 hours. Last year, it took sometimes up to 2 days for me to actually get the files. So they're not going to be instantaneous. And I try to cut them a little bit to make sure that the audio quality is not as awful as it is in the original file that I get, and to cut out the breaks and so on. So this usually takes me a bit of time as well for post-processing. The old recordings are still online on the recording space. You can look at those. Some of it will have changed, and you can compare if I make progress from last year to this year, and then let me know in the evaluation if you think it was actually worth it. Exercises, that's one of the bigger changes. They're on Wednesdays from 1 to 4 in INM 203, INM 11, INF 213, and INJ 218. So we've got 4 different rooms. We've got about 250 people in here for this class. We have to break this up a bit. There's a larger room of around 90 and a bunch of smaller rooms of around 40 to 50 people. We'll post the schedule for the exercise sessions on either on Moodle or an Ed discussion, depending on, likely on Moodle, but we'll figure this out based on last name very likely. But feel free to roam around to whatever session you would like to go. Just an indication so that we have some distribution of the students going to the different classes or to the different rooms. There's a benefit of going to the large room because the main TA who worked on the slides is going to be in the large room. There's a disadvantage of going to the large room because there's going to be a lot of people. So we're trying to distribute this a bit so that you still get interactions, personal contact, but then it's a large class, and we'll try to make the best out of it as possible. Exercises work in a way that there's going to be demos, discussion session, and then time for you to work through the theoretical exercises, but also through the practical exercises. And it's going to be a mix of both. Then one part that is interesting, that is most interesting for many of you, how you will be graded on the course. We're going to do 4 quizzes and a final exam in the exam session. There's going to be 4 quizzes where we're going to count the best 3 out of 4 quizzes distributed throughout the semester. These are going to be 30% of the grade, and we're going to have a final exam in the regular exam session. The quizzes are going to be in here in multiple choice. In previous years, they used to be on Moodle. But how should I say? There's a choice between large-scale collaboration groups in Moodle and smaller-scale collaboration groups in here. And I'll be opting for the smaller-scale unintended collaboration groups in the classroom compared to doing this online. Also, I'm sure you're familiar with all the AI tools. They are pretty good at answering questions and summarizing things, which is given that this is a very basic class, I cannot ask for very detailed questions. So many of the questions will be rather high level, which are very easy answerable through an LLM. But the goal is not to test if you can use an LLM or AI tool. The goal is for you to actually get this overview of the class. So therefore, we're going to do the test, the quizzes on site here in the lecture room. So this is going to be 4 times throughout the semester, which will be 70% of the grade, plus 30% of the grade, plus 70% of the grade from the actual exam in the exam session. The exercises and homeworks are self-graded, and they help you prepare out of the same reason. Given that the amount of collaboration among students, we can no longer do graded homeworks. That's just yeah, the size of the class versus the students, which is like a realistic trade-off. I still encourage you to try out some of the as many of the homeworks as you can. I know, especially during the semester, this will get fairly busy for you on all the other projects that you'll be working on. But keep in mind that this will help you long term, but also for the quizzes and for the exam. As I mentioned, exercises and homework, we'll distribute an exercise sheet each week that contains both theoretical and practical questions about the lecture, including some like coding aspects and more practical hands-on stuff. The theoretical questions are very similar to the exam questions, allowing you to practice, but getting you a bit more feedback and detail. Ask questions about the exercises on the Moodle or the Ed discussion forum, and like feel free to do them in groups. So it often helps to discuss the material both as a group and then to ask questions in the exercise sessions if you have any. We'll distribute the solution sheets on Wednesday as well and upload it on Moodle. The quizzes are always in class at 6:30. So these days when we have quizzes, we're just going to run the class a little bit longer for the first 2 hours, then have a break of 15 minutes, allowing us to set up the quizzes. And at 18:30 or 6:30, you will have the quiz, 15 minutes, and then you can end 15 minutes earlier as well. Also, lesson from previous years. If I do quizzes at the beginning, nobody's paying attention afterwards. So we're now doing quizzes at the end. Likely it will be hard to pay attention even at the end, but I'm aware that there's no good solution, right? We have to do the quizzes on site. Quizzes at the beginning of the class are not good, and quizzes at the end of the class are not good. So we're trying. Last year I tried it at the beginning of the class. This year we'll try it at the end of the class, but a little bit closer together, like a little bit condensed, and see if that works. If not, next year we're gonna flip it around again and do something else. Also, if you have thoughts on the quizzes, the setup or whatnot, let me know. I am very open. I should have mentioned this before. I'm very open towards feedback. I appreciate feedback, both in person or anonymous. Like I'm not, like I try to improve the class as much as I can. So if you have different kind of topics that you feel are not covered well, not covered enough, not detailed enough, do let me know, and we'll try to make it better for this year if we can adjust, or definitely for next year, for the next group of people, because this class will stick around. I'm trying my best, but I only have I only have limited visibility, because I already know this material, right? For you who are learning this material, you're looking at this from a very different perspective. So I actually need your feedback to make this class better for the next years. What else about quizzes? Yes, they're multiple choice, and we will auto grade it. So make sure to bring a stylo, to write. Make sure to write down your name and whatnot, sign, and stay in the boxes. As mentioned before, 3 out of 4 quizzes count for the 3 best quizzes count for 30% of the grade, which means that you need to show up for at least 3 quizzes, but I still encourage you to show up to all 4, because we are only deleting your worst one, right? Also, the 3 out of 4 allows us to protect against any kind of other issues where, I don't know, your train is late, you're not arriving here on time, you have some other obligation or whatnot, and yeah, some other potential conflicts that are unavoidable. Try the best for all of the quizzes. If you can, try all the 4 quizzes, because it can only improve your grade. The goal is not to make quizzes super hard. So my goal is to make the quizzes possible. and a way for you to test the basic understanding of the class, whereas the exam questions will be a little bit harder than the quiz questions. So doing both, coming to the quizzes and doing quizzes gives you a very good, or should give you a very good baseline of the like a way to like jumpstart the grade. And yes, as mentioned, it's not possible to retake the quiz. Each year I get like 50 requests. Can we retake the quiz? It's like, this is in a class of 250 students, it's just not possible. I cannot do individual quizzes. I cannot do individual oral exams either, right? So this just doesn't work. This is why we're offering a 3 out of 4 approach. So show up for the quizzes. Make sure to like be around on time. If you try to make the class at 4, that's another benefit of having the quiz at 6:30. Even if your train is late, you will be here for the quiz. Good. So much about grading and the exam. What I would also like to mention is the polyglot CTF team. Who's aware of the CTF team? Quick show of hands. Very cool. Who has played? 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Very cool, very nice. So the CTF team is like the Polyglots EPFL CTF team is think of it as an e-sport team where we're trying to solve interesting challenges for points and become the best hacker team in the world. It's a competitive security game where the different teams are solving security challenges. If you solve these challenges, you get points. Whoever has the most internet points wins and gets fame and glory for the rest of their lives. The good thing is there's 2 benefits. You may be able to get one of these cool sweaters. That's one part. Or we are usually competing at several on-site CTFs as well. For example, in like 3 weeks ago, I was at DEF CON in Vegas playing with our CTF team to get as many points as possible. DEF CON hosts what is considered the Hacker Olympics, where the best teams worldwide compete. And we're actually not too shabby. We didn't win, but we were not the last team either. Especially considering that given that we are sending 50-ish people, and other teams are sending around 200 people, I think we did a pretty good showing. So you may be able to go to DEF CON if you're playing with a like all expenses paid trip, flight, hotel, and whatnot, and go compete with the best other hacking teams out there. Code of conduct. For security and privacy classes in here, quizzes and exam, no cheating. Obviously, if you catch you cheating, there's going to be issues. Communication, forgery, or whatnot during the exam is not allowed. If you find any vulnerabilities during this course, we ask you to responsibly disclose it to the actual vendors. If it's our code, let us know. If it's code from somebody else, go reach out to the security contacts. You're learning some tools on how to break into other systems. If you're unpatched, use this power wisely, and be aware that there's a legal framework as well that you'll have to follow. The full and complete code of conduct is on Moodle. Some notes about the course agenda, right? These are the 4 big blocks that we're going to cover. And information basics. We're going to talk about cyber threats and different kind of backgrounds of cyber threats. There's going to be like just the basic language for the rest of the course that we're going to cover. Crypto basics is going to talk about cryptography, not the currency. We're talking about actual cryptography, not cryptocurrencies. This is not a course about cryptocurrency, nor blockchain for that matter. So we're not into hype, we're into the actual technologies. The crypto basics also cover different kind of communication platforms such as TLS, files, disks, how to encrypt data in transit and data at rest. with the goals of confidentiality, integrity, and authentication as well, and different kind of ways how this can be implemented. After authentication, there's also access control. Who gets access? How do we manage access? How do we authenticate users? Figuring out all these different aspects. One of the interesting angles of authentication is that, as you may have noticed the last couple of weeks, especially if you've been at EPFL before, EPFL just rolled out two-factor authentication using a modern provider for webmail, email, and a bunch of other services. We're going to discuss how these different two-factor authentication schemes are implemented, what their benefits are, but also what their limitations are. In the big security block, we're going to talk about data security, how protect data, again, data in transit and data at rest, programming languages security and compartments, how we can actually make our systems more secure by looking at the underlying programming languages, different kind of memory safety, type safety, namespaces, building secure systems and whatnot, and fitting everything together. OWASP and software security, we're looking at the larger software ecosystem, but also at web applications and web vulnerabilities, especially as most of the code today is being written for web applications, so protecting those is of key interest as well. Applications of security, so this is the third big block. We're going to look into three different angles. Automated testing. This is likely one of the tools that you will use as software developers. So we're spending some effort on the automated testing approaches that exist today to give you like a little bit of some techniques into your tool set that you can use in your jobs. We're going to talk about mobile security with a focus on the Android framework, trying to figure out what has changed, for example, compared to desktop systems. I see many of you are still using desktop systems. Being computer science, we are a rare minority. Many other areas of society have switched mostly to mobiles and tablets, which is a very different approach towards security than if you're actually running like a full laptop or desktop system. Is anybody getting by with just a Chromebook? Okay. What systems are you using? Who's in the Windows camp? Okay. 25%. Who's a Mac user? Okay, cool. Who's a real computer scientist? Linux users? Okay, so about 10% Linux, 40–50% Mac, and 30–40 Windows. So it's a big distribution. Out of the Windows users, who's not a gamer? So a few, very cool. Those that are not gamers yet, I would recommend switching to Linux and see the light. Those that are gamers, there's Proton.
It's not that stable these days. It doesn't cover everything.
It's doable. Right. For many of the things, it's doable.
Some pretty good games that don't work. It's very annoying.
Another topic, network and operational security, figuring out how this works in larger networks, segregation of networks and data, firewalls and whatnot, all these things. T's and side channels then allow us to look a bit at the hardware perspective, rounding off the security applications a bit. Last block is going to be privacy. We're looking at privacy aspects, which are different from some of the security aspects. Like, for example, tracking user data where you as the user want to protect your data to some extent, but also machine learning and machine learning security and privacy was one of my favorite examples. Like, you really have to control your input. If you retrain your models based on random input that you're polling all the time, very bad things may happen. Quick show of hands. Who remembers Tay? 1, 2. Wow, very few. Very few. So we're going to discuss this in a bit more detail as well. And like in a bigger picture, we want to protect information and computer systems, real-world physical systems that depend on IT systems, but also people, right? We want to protect the people as well against different kind of bad things from happening. And one of the differences if you bring in security is that you have a dedicated attacker. With reliability or safety, you have bad events happening. So you can actually, like, it's random chance. Whereas if you have an attacker, the attacker will analyze your system and try to gain as much as they can from your system, right? So we assume an intelligent attacker against the system. And that's the key difference between security and reliability that we look at. So we need methods to understand, classify, and prevent what actually can go wrong in a larger setting. Security and privacy is about controlling risk and different aspects of risks. You can't be secure without knowing your assets, what you want to protect, what the threats are, what the attack vectors are, and the different risks. Doing some kind of risk modeling and risk assessment. And have some basic trust assumptions. For example, encryption cannot be broken, or we are assuming certain level of secrecy, or we are trusting certain people, right? So we're building, but specifying, we're relying on assumptions, but we're specifying these assumptions so that they can be checked. Security is an ongoing process and requires regular audit and improvement. Now, if you haven't watched a movie, who has watched Hackers? One. Oh, that's very sad. So if you want, I still have the DVD. If anybody still watches or anybody still has a DVD player, but it's also available on the major streaming platforms. It's a very cheesy mid-90s movie, which nicely visualizes the hacker spirit, and still a very a very good recommendation if you want to get into the spirit. It's a very, very cool movie. Highly recommended. So if you want to add it to your watch list for some of the cheesy movies, that's one of the things to do. And you can call it research for a class, right? So you even have an excuse. Very good. That's the first part of the class. We're going to take a break here, and then we're going to continue with some of the basic and common security threats.